All right, welcome. Today we are diving deep into the final teachings of Huineng, the legendary sixth patriarch of Zen. And trust me, this is way more than just a history lesson. This is a practical guide to understanding the very nature of your own mind.
So let's start with this incredible moment of, you could call it, quiet defiance. It's the year 705, and the most powerful people in China summon Master Huineng to the imperial court. But he says no. He claims he's old and sick and would rather just stay in the mountains. Now, this wasn't an act of disrespect. It was a powerful statement about where real wisdom is actually found.
You see, his refusal points to a kind of wisdom that you can't just summon or own. You can only realize it for yourself. So to really get what he was teaching, here's our roadmap. We're going to look at the wisdom the emperor was after. We'll challenge a huge assumption about meditation. Then we'll reframe how we see our own inner struggles, learn a super practical method for the mind, and finally, we'll tackle the biggest question of all. Where is the Buddha, really?
So what was this wisdom? What was this thing that the imperial court, with all its power and all its resources, couldn't just demand? It was something that had to be sought out, humbly.
So the emperor's envoy, a guy named Shu Jian, makes the journey to Huineng's monastery. And he's not just carrying an invitation, he's carrying a question. A question that really represents a fundamental fork in the road for anyone on a spiritual path. It gets right to the core of what it even means to practice.
And this brings us to one of the most common questions about enlightenment, then and now. What does it actually take to wake up? Okay, the contrast on this slide is just fascinating. The envoy lays it out. All the big-name masters in the capital city agree on one thing. To find the way, you have to practice sitting meditation, period. But Huineng's response? It was completely revolutionary. He basically says, the way isn't found in a physical posture. It's awakened from within the mind itself.
So, this is the crucial point, right? For Huineng, enlightenment isn't about perfecting some technique or holding a certain pose. It's about a direct, personal insight into how your own mind works. He said that to think the Buddha is only found when you're sitting on a cushion, well, that's a huge mistake. The real practice is happening in every single moment, not just when you're formally meditating.
But, okay, if it's all about the mind, that brings up a really tough question. What do we do with all of the junk in there? Into the anger, the anxiety, the confusion that we all feel. What do we do with our afflictions?
And Huineng's answer here is one of the most stunning statements in all of Buddhism. He tells the envoy that affliction is enlightenment. Yeah, you heard that right. They are not two separate things. You don't get rid of your problems to find enlightenment. You actually find enlightenment within the problems themselves.
Now, this whole idea is based on this core principle of non-duality. It doesn't mean that anger feels the same as peace. Of course not. It means that their ultimate nature, their very essence, isn't two different things. It's kind of like a wave in the ocean. They look different, for sure, but they are both fundamentally just water.
And this slide just illustrates that shift in perspective perfectly. The ordinary view sees life as a series of battles, good versus evil, happiness versus suffering. But an awakened mind, it understands that these opposites are totally inseparable. They arise together and their basic nature is one and the same.
Okay, so this idea of non-duality is pretty powerful. But how do we actually use it in our lives? Well, Huineng gave us a very practical method. In his final teachings, Huineng gave his disciples what he called the 36 pairs of opposites. It's basically a list of concepts like light and dark, sacred and secular, motion and stillness. But the key here isn't to memorize the list, not at all. It's about understanding the technique behind it.
The method is actually beautifully simple. Whenever you're asked about any concept, you immediately bring up its opposite. So if someone asks you, what is good? You start by talking about evil. Why? Because this move reveals that they actually define each other. You can't truly know one without the other. And when you see how they depend on each other, your mind stops clinging to either extreme, and in that space, you find freedom. This is the very heart of the middle way.
So this deep understanding of non-duality, this practice of the middle way, it all leads to the final, most important question. After all this insight, after all this work, where do we actually find the Buddha?
In his last sermon, right before he passed away, Huineng gave his disciples the answer. And he turned their attention away from some distant future goal. He said, if you can truly see and recognize the people and the living things all around you, right now, that's it. You are seeing Buddha nature. It isn't hiding somewhere.
And then he took it a step further. He said that when your own true nature awakens, you realize that all beings are Buddha. The only delusion is thinking that you're separate from them, or that a Buddha is some special thing that's different from what you and everyone else already are.
And right here, this is the final instruction. This is the punchline. The entire search ends exactly where it started, inside your own mind. The true Buddha isn't some external person or statue to be worshipped. It is the inherent awake nature of your own consciousness. There is literally nowhere else to look.
And so, the Sixth Patriarch's final teaching, it isn't really a doctrine or a dogma. It's a direct and very personal question for each of us to carry with us. Knowing that the true Buddha is your own mind, what are you still searching for out there?